Well, hello again. My name is Kevin Ocobillo with the City of Los Angeles Department of Transportation. Today, we're going to talk to you about the Wilmington Safe Streets project. At this time, I'd like to introduce the rest of my project team, starting with Lauren.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lauren Ballard, and I am a transportation planner with the City of Los Angeles Department of Transportation, where I focus on our Vision Zero initiative. I'm going to now hand it over to Claire Eberly. Sorry, I just realized Claire is in our Spanish channel. So if she's able to come back into the English room, we can do that. Otherwise, I'm going.
Sí. Hola a todos. Me llamo Claire Eberly. Estoy con LADOT y mucho gusto y gracias para participar.
Right, Tam, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Tam Wen. I am also a transportation planner at the Los Angeles Department of Transportation. I work in the Active Transportation Division.
Great. And we're also joined by our partners at Council District 15. Fernando, did you want to say anything on behalf of your office?
Yeah, of course. Can you all hear me?
Perfect.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll say it in Spanish first for Spanish speakers. Muy buenas tardes a todos. Feliz año. Les deseo a cada uno de ustedes próspero 2022. Mi nombre es Fernando Navarrete con la oficina del concejal Joe Buscaino, su concejal para el 15º distrito de la ciudad de Los Ángeles. Como dijo Kevin Ocubillo y su equipo, estamos aquí para platicar sobre un proyecto, la verdad que ya ha durado demasiado tiempo por varias razones, pero estamos en este entonces para platicar sobre el proyecto de calles seguras, enfocándonos en la calle de Anaheim, que como muchos de ustedes saben, tiene muchos problemas, más cuando nos estamos yendo hacia el este de la calle, obviamente muy impactado por varios camiones, muchos peatones que han muerto sobre los años, pero por eso estamos en ese entonces para no solamente asegurarnos que los peatones estén salvos, pero igualmente las necesidades de las calles las podemos platicar como comunidad, como concilio, igualmente como departamento. Así que bienvenidos a todos y de nuevo muchas gracias por tomarse la oportunidad y tomar su tiempo de dar sus opiniones y sugerencias para este proyecto. I'll be a lot more brief in English. Thank you everyone for taking the time to join us. I wish you all a prosperous and happy 2022. Thank you for joining us in this evening. And as I mentioned in Spanish, this project is long overdue for the Safe Streets project, focusing on the Anaheim Street corridor. And I just want to thank first and foremost, the Vision Zero team, Kevin Ocubillo, Claire, and her team have been instrumental in ensuring that this project moves forward with also other ranges of projects throughout our Wilmington community. But I do want to thank the LADOT team. As you all know, the councilman sits on transportation committee, so this is one of the most important projects for the councilman, as Vision Zero has been in this district. So thank you all for taking the time to join us today, and I kick it off to the DOT team.
Thank you, Fernando. And again, for some of those who are just joining us, this presentation is being recorded, and there's also an option to listen in with some Spanish interpretation. At the bottom of your screen, you should see a little globe with the word interpretation. If you click there and select Spanish, you can tune in and listen in on Spanish. So we can go to the next slide, please. So without further ado, this presentation will cover 4 topics: background information on how and why the project was selected, information about the project area, which includes Anaheim Street, as well as some neighborhood streets, the design tools that the city can use to address the issues in Wilmington, and finally, how the community can provide feedback and help shape the project. We can go to the next slide. So we'll start with some basic information about Wilmington that we believe is relevant to that project. And for that, I'd like to invite my colleague, Lauren Ballard.
Thank you, Kevin. So the Wilmington Safe Streets project includes two project areas: a portion of Anaheim Street and segments of neighborhood streets in Wilmington, including L Street, Frigate Avenue, Hawaiian Avenue, Neptune Avenue, and Eubank Avenue. And you can see those streets highlighted in yellow on this map. Next slide. With a population of about 56,000 people, Wilmington is relatively young, with 29% of residents under the age of 18. This is important as we know that young people are especially vulnerable in traffic crashes. And in fact, the leading cause of death for kids under 14 in LA County is traffic crashes. Wilmington has a significant Spanish-speaking population, as you all know, with more than 3/4 of residents speaking Spanish at home and 1/3 of residents saying that they don't speak English very well. And for this reason, this project will make every effort to include Spanish language communication throughout the outreach process. 1 in 5 residents lives below the poverty line in Wilmington, which in 2019 was less than $17,000 for a household of 2. In 2020, the average cost of owning a car was $9,560 a year, a tremendous financial burden on low-income families. This makes providing safe, high-quality transportation alternatives like transit, walking, and biking very important. Next slide. Here you can see just some of the local resources and destinations in our project area. There are 6 LAUSD schools that serve more than 4,000 students, Harbor Community College, and more than 350 acres of parks and recreation space. Throughout our community engagement process, we want to hear more from you about where Wilmington residents go on a regular basis and how we can make it easier to access these destinations. Next slide. We also know that the Wilmington community suffers disproportionately from air pollution because of how close it is to the Port of Los Angeles, refineries, freeways, and rail yards. Here you can see that the census tracts in Wilmington have higher levels of air pollutants than most other areas of California. These pollutants have health impacts, including increased rates of asthma, heart and lung disease, cancer, and increased mortality rates. For many years, the Wilmington community has advocated for reduced pollution and improvements to air quality. One way to achieve this is by improving connections to local destinations without driving. Around 47% of trips that begin in Wilmington are under 3 miles, which is a distance that can be made by bike or transit. Next slide, please. Wilmington already has substantial bus activity, with more than 6,000 bus trips taken per typical weekday in the project area. We want to create a project that serves these riders as they wait for their bus and travel to and from destinations nearby. Next slide. This map shows the existing bicycle network in Wilmington. The blue lines represent bike lanes, red represents bike routes, and purple is bike paths. The thicker yellow lines will be our focus streets for us to build upon and expand this bike network in the area. While there are 15.2 miles of bike lanes in this area, this project will work to still build better connections to amenities such as parks, schools, transit stops, and local businesses. Next slide. There are 3 sets of City of Los Angeles plans and policies guiding the development of this project. Vision Zero is the city's goal to eliminate traffic deaths and was established in 2015 by Mayor Garcetti. Mobility Plan 2035 is part of the city's general plan. It identifies networks of streets that should be prioritized for bicycle, pedestrian, and transit improvements, as well as goods movement and vehicle movement. The Wilmington Empower Plan identifies potential improvements to streets like Anaheim and local streets in Wilmington, which we will explore in further detail throughout the project development process. Next slide. Some of the goals for this project are to improve street safety, access to local destinations, and air quality for Wilmington residents by making investments in alternative transportation infrastructure. We hope to engage and empower the Wilmington community as the project develops. Next slide. So now we'll take a closer look at the project area. Next slide. We are focusing on 2.2 miles of Anaheim Street from Figueroa to Henry Ford Avenue, which you can see here in the area bound by the red box. Through our Vision Zero initiative, we've identified a pattern of crashes that have killed or severely injured people on this street. Because of this, Anaheim Street is what we call a Vision Zero priority corridor. Next slide. This map shows the number of victims of severe or fatal injury crashes along Anaheim from 2010 to 2019. 35 crashes resulted in 42 people being severely injured or killed, mostly people walking or biking. Several of these victims were under the age of 18. When we looked at the details of these fatal and severe crashes, we saw some patterns emerge. The most common issues were drivers violating a pedestrian's right-of-way, left turn crashes, and unsafe speed crashes. These issues are related to the way the street is laid out. So let's take a quick look at the current street design. Next slide. Most of Anaheim in this area is 56 feet wide, with 2 vehicle travel lanes in each direction and either parking on both sides or a center turn lane to facilitate left turns. Some portions are wider and might include additional lanes. This map shows existing places where people can cross the street. There are 9 traffic signals on this stretch of Anaheim, and that means an average of about a quarter mile or about a 5-minute walk between traffic signals where people can comfortably cross the street. With high-speed traffic, at least 4 lanes to cross, and up to a 5-minute walk to the closest safe crossing, it's not surprising that Anaheim is unfriendly to pedestrians. Next slide. The city declared Anaheim a Vision Zero priority corridor in 2017 and got to work installing basic safety improvements and designing and implementing several signal projects, which you can see listed here. I'll pause for a moment so that you can review these improvements. They include 4 speed feedback signs, 6 rectangular rapid flashing beacons, 7 leading pedestrian intervals, and high visibility crosswalks. Next slide. LADOT is planning to install several more new signals and signal upgrades along Anaheim, including 2 new traffic signals at Bayview and Marine Avenue, and 3 pedestrian hybrid beacons at Gulf Avenue, Island Avenue, and Hawaiian Avenue. You will see these over the next few years. However, we know that more needs to be done on Anaheim, and that's what we're here today to talk about. But first, I'm going to pass it over to Tam, who will do the next portion of this presentation.
Thanks, Lauren. While we work on improving Anaheim, we also want to improve safety and accessibility on some key neighborhood streets. The Wilmington Empower Survey and Mobility Plan lays out the issues that neighborhood streets in Wilmington face. For this project, we'll be looking at L Street, Frigate Avenue, Hawaiian Avenue, Neptune Avenue, and Eubank Avenue. In the last couple of years, we've done some engagement work for the Neighborhood Streets project in Wilmington. An example of this would be the Active Streets Wilmington Ciclovia event in 2019. Through activities such as walk audits and community charrettes, we engaged participants to identify and prioritize neighborhood walking and biking routes. The goal was to refresh data, renew community engagement, and develop plans for Wilmington neighborhood-friendly streets. Now we're going to look at the street design tools that we can use to achieve the goals for this project. First, we'll look at ideas for improving Anaheim Street before turning to potential treatments for the neighborhood streets. We can make walking, biking, rolling, and driving safer on Anaheim through changes in street design. Some changes improve the way people cross the street, such as adding pedestrian hybrid beacons, pedestrian refuge islands, and curb extensions. Other modifications are meant to reduce conflicts between drivers and other road users, such as adding protected left turn signals. Pedestrian lighting and bus stop enhancements would provide a more pleasant and comfortable environment for people walking and waiting for the bus. A lane reconfiguration would change the layout of the street in a way that would calm traffic and provide more space for people walking and biking. The treatments you see here would provide better and safer access for people biking on and across Anaheim Street. This includes providing dedicated space to travel on Anaheim, such as a bike lane protected from vehicle traffic by street parking or bollards. Bike boxes and protected intersections give bicyclists a space to wait at an intersection. Toucan signals, bike loop detectors, and protected intersections would all make crossing intersections on a bike easier and safer. Bike corrals would provide better access to businesses through dedicated bike parking spots on the streets. By making key investment on the neighborhood streets, we can slow down traffic, increase pedestrian visibility, and discourage cut-through and truck traffic. This will improve safety and enhance access to local destinations. Treatments like speed humps, neighborhood traffic circles, and diverters reduce vehicle speed on residential streets and either discourage or prohibit drivers from cutting through residential streets. This results in a safer and more pleasant environment for people walking and biking. We can also consider curb extensions and the addition of curb ramps at intersections to make it easier for people to cross the street, particularly for older adults and people with disabilities. We can make it clear to drivers that these neighborhood streets are also used by bicyclists by installing bike route signage and pavement markings like share routes. We also see an opportunity to look at green street improvements in Wilmington. These include treatments like permeable pavement and sidewalks, bioswales, and street trees. Green streets can improve air and water quality, capture stormwater, and reduce urban heat. And I'm going to turn it back to Kevin to conclude this presentation.
Thanks, Tam. So now let's turn to the project timeline and how we'll get the community involved. Over the next few months, we'll be engaging the community to help develop a project. We're currently building connections with and seeking input from neighborhood leaders, organizations, and stakeholders. This includes you. We will continue to gather input from the wider community in January and February through a variety of events and methods of outreach. We will use this input to develop a project concept and present it to the community in the spring. We aim to install near-term quick build version of the improvements on Anaheim Street in the summer of 2022 before more comprehensive neighborhood improvements come in the future. LADOT has a lot of experience doing public outreach in a variety of formats. And for this project, we want to make sure we're reaching as many people as possible, including groups that are sometimes left out of the process. This includes youth and families, bus riders, small businesses, people who walk and bike, and people who speak languages other than English. Next slide, please. So here are some examples of outreach strategies that we have used both prior to and during the COVID-19 pandemic. They include traditional methods such as flyers and town hall events, as well as more on-the-ground approaches to meet community members where they are. Next slide, please. We are asking individuals to complete a survey about their experiences on Anaheim Street and in Wilmington. This is available in both English and Spanish and can be accessed at ladot.lacity.org/Wilmington. Additionally, we have a feedback map available on our website where people can point out specific locations on Anaheim where they have noticed issues and would like to see improvements. The map is at ladot.livablestreets.org/projects/Anaheim. We can be reached by email at vision0@lacity.org. We also have a voicemail box available if you want to call at 213-632-5964. We're asking organizations such as yours to submit a formal letter to us documenting your experiences in Wilmington. We're also eager to present at any regular or special meeting to hear your thoughts about this project. Next slide. Thank you very much for your opportunity to talk about this project. We welcome any questions you may have and feedback that you may have.